Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here, once again, and I survived. I survived Peter Pan and Wendy. And this movie, it was completely unnecessary. It was just a huge waste of time. I mean, I don't know how these movies keep on getting greenlit. I mean, the only thing that I can think, besides money, like easy money, oh look, it's a Peter Pan movie, the only other reason I think is that, maybe they have some sort of a weird scheme where they want to erase the cartoons and then replace them with the live action because the live actions aren't as, inflammatory, I guess. But it's kind of like a double-edged sword because this movie is really, really inflammatory itself. And, this is all going to be spoilers. So, for starters, the casting. The casting to this movie is pretty bad. I mean, Wendy, she was the best part of the movie. She actually did a really good job. I thought that, she's another great up-and-comer actress. The actor who played Peter Pan, I thought he was terrible. They tokenized him. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was he was terrible in terms of, he was so pouty. The whole movie, he always has this, pouty face. And he's always, crying and throwing temper tantrums. And, he's completely not the character from the original movie. It's almost like the story was turned into something that it's not a little bit. The story is Wendy knows that it's good to grow up, and Peter Pan is a man-baby child who doesn't. And then Hook is another kind of man-baby character. So I did not like Peter Pan. Tinkerbell, she was another tokenized character. But she's really, really pretty. She wasn't terrible, honestly. I kind of liked it every time she came on screen, if we're being completely honest. And then Hook was played by Jude Law. He always does a good job in anything he does, basically. He's a grade A actor. The problem is that the look that they gave him was really, really weird. I mean, they gave him this kind of blonde hippie look, this weird blondish hair. It almost looks like he's Peter Pan grown up with a mustache. The real Peter Pan. So I thought that was kind of weird. And then, I'm trying to think if there's anyone else worth mentioning. Not really. So as I said, this movie's really unnecessary. The whole time I was just asking myself, why was this movie made? That's not a good sign. When you watch a movie and you're halfway through it and, the movie's had all this time to give you some cool stuff. It's had all this time to show you new ideas and prove to you that it deserved to be made. But halfway through it, still, I'm like, why was this made? And then 75% of the way through it, why was this made? And so that's a bad thing. This movie was completely unnecessary. If anything, they should have just made a sequel or something. I don't know. They didn't even sing What Makes the Red Man Red, too. I mean, come on. That's just... Oh, now it's raining. Or not. It's kind of sprinkling. So, it was just, boring. It was boring, too, because it just was going through the motions. It was just, okay, we have to do that, we have to do that, we have to show that. Peter Pan has to say that. Wendy has to say that. It was like everything was so forced and so not organic. The movie looked really ugly too. Like, it looked like if you have food poisoning and then you took a paintbrush and you put it in the diarrhea and that you have because of the food poisoning, and then you took like a beautiful colorful film frame and then you paint it with the fucking diarrhea. Like, the whole movie just looks like diarrhea, honestly. This is Peter Pan and Wendy and diarrhea. I mean, there wasn't one part of the movie that looked pretty at all. It was so ugly and so, like, just, ugh. Well, okay, actually, I changed my mind. There was a really cool sequence at nighttime where, like, everything was blue, and I really miss in movies when they had blue as nighttime color. And so that was a really, really good looking sequence, but everything else in the movie just looks so ugly and gross. And the story, it just like kind of followed in its footsteps, but didn't at times. Like, there were times where it did all these offshoots and to these weird things that would happen that were just like, okay, you're just like doing something, I guess. Like, there wasn't anything that felt necessary. Like, everything just felt so pointless and dumb, you know, like, ugh. So I really didn't like all the story, basically. Like, and I know that sounds bad, but it's true. Like, the best parts of this movie were a couple of things: Wendy, Hook, the music, and the directing. I felt like the person who made the movie is a pretty good filmmaker, because even though this is like a soulless, pointless Disney live-action movie, I can still kind of see some goodness inside it, and I can see like this kind of warm human quality that is missing from a lot of like big budget movies. And so it feels like the people who made it, you know, they do like to make movies. They are, you know, they are into filmmaking. Now, Hook, I also really liked Hook. Even though he looked terrible, I thought that he did a pretty good job acting. You know, there were some moments, especially toward the end, where I thought that he was like stealing the show. At the same time, though, it was pointless. It was all for nothing. It's like, what if you get all the ingredients to make a steak dinner, and then at the last minute, you're like, let's go get pizza. But not regular pizza, fucking shitty pizza. You know, like Milano's, Donato's, Pizza Hut, Papa John's, fucking Marion's. So that's the experience of this movie. It's all for nothing. Like, the actress who plays Wendy did a good job. It's all for nothing. Why? Because I'm never watching this movie again. And, you know, when's the next time? Like, I don't know what else she's going to be in for now. So, what else to talk about? Okay, so there were some agendas which were kind of, like, irritating. Specifically with, like, dialogue, like with Wendy. You know, there was this one part where Captain Hook says, "You have a boy's magic." And then she says, "No boy owns this magic. I have the magic," or something. Like, it was really dumb. It's like, oh, just because he says the word boy is automatically like, ooh, that's a bad thing. And so there was another really cringeworthy line where it was it was in the trailer, you know, "Oh, you're not all lost, boys." And then you have these two girls and they're like, so that was another cringe line. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Well, near the end, it's kind of interesting because they're almost like trying to make Hook into a sympathetic character. And Hook is like, he's mad at Peter Pan. Basically the story becomes all about how Peter Pan is a bad guy, and he doesn't want to grow up, and he did this thing to Hook where he got mad at Hook because Hook missed his mom, and then Peter Pan forced Hook out of Neverland. And it's like, God, they're making Peter Pan out to sound like the biggest jackass in human history. And I thought, like, Peter Pan dies at a point in this movie, or he kind of dies, but then he's brought back. And what's the deal with this thing now where it's like, in every one of these big budget movies, there always has to be this bashing and hatred of the main character. The main male character, he has to be, put through the ringer, and he has to be put in the mud and shit all over. And of course, Wendy, she knows best. She teaches Peter Pan the right way. She teaches Hook the right way, even though they don't want to grow up. They don't want to accept whatever. She knows, it's that typical thing. And then at the end, it's just a complete cartoon in terms of, like, she's doing all the magic, she's doing all the action, and Peter Pan's kind of doing it, but it's mostly her saving him and making it to where, it's like he's almost helpless and he can't do anything without her. Whereas earlier in the movie, he did all this fighting by himself just fine. So that was another weird thing. And then, you guys see how much I don't even care, like this, it's just really bad. So then they get home, and Hook dies, or he quote unquote dies, MCU style. And it's funny because they make Hook's death more tragic and sad than Peter Pan's. Like, Peter Pan, he dies, and it's just like, oh, whatever. But when Hook dies, it's like the biggest travesty in the world. Even to the point of where Peter Pan is mourning Hook's death, and it's really, really sad. And it's just emphasized so much to where it's like, just like, why? He's supposedly a bad guy. He's a pirate. You know what pirates do? They rape, they steal, they kill. They fucking, like, they're really, really bad. Like, they're really evil, and they're not people to be celebrated unless they're, like, fucking Jack Sparrow and shit. So this thing where Peter Pan, he takes Hook's hook, and he's, like, fondling it and caressing it like it's a human person, that he's really sad that the hook is now without a person, is now without a body. So I thought that was another stupid thing. And then they get home, and that's where the weirdness begins. So Wendy sees Peter Pan's name etched in brick on the roof of her apartment building, which means that, I guess, Peter Pan, he's like an adult. He's really old, but he's still a kid in Neverland. And he used to live there where she was. And they have this talk on the roof where he's like, I don't want to grow up. And then he leaves. And then the most cringe thing happens. Well, besides the fact that the parents watch Peter Pan sail off on his ship. And they're like, yeah, that's totally normal. And then nobody else cares in the whole city, too. Like, this huge pirate ship with all this magic stuff going on. Nobody even cares except for Wendy and her family and her parents. But then the most cringeworthy thing happens. Wendy etches underneath the brick plus Wendy. So that's when you see Peter Pan plus Wendy. And so that was just the icing on the shit cake. But it was so stupid because it's like, that's the whole reason that they called this movie Peter Pan and Wendy. It wasn't even for like an agenda reason, like, oh, it's Peter Pan and Wendy, because, nobody would have known that Wendy's in a Peter Pan story. It's like, we're all a bunch of idiots. It's like, no, it's all because of the etching in the brick where they put plus Wendy. And I thought, why? Just why? That was so stupid. And then you see Hook is, of course, alive. And then he's fine. He's just kind of like mad and kind of tired and grumpy. Because he fell off of the pirate ship into the water. So all in all, like, I'm sorry about the review being so short, but there's nothing to talk about with this bland, pointless movie. Like, the most that I can say, once again, the movie was well made. It had good music. Hook was good. Wendy was really good. And that's that. Like, this movie was trash otherwise. It was just pure trash. But it wasn't terrible trash. It was just kind of bad trash. Like, this movie was nowhere near as bad as Ant-Man 3. It was nowhere near as bad as Wham and Talking. It was nowhere near as bad as Megan. Is that what that movie was? So my review would be, you know what? Speaking of bad pizza, there was this one time last year where we got Milano's for the last time. And I got what I usually like to get there when I used to go there. I got French bread pizza, a personal French bread pizza. And I guess I didn't select tomato sauce on accident, or I don't know. But I got both pizzas. Got a pepperoni pizza, got a supreme pizza. Both French bread pizzas had no sauce. And so I just took like 2 bites and I threw it all out. It was terrible. It was awful. It's like, what the hell is this? And of course the bread, you could chip a tooth on it because it's so fucking hard. I hate it when they do that, at these restaurants where they make the bread really hard and just, it's like you can't, it's tough to eat. It's like you're going to break your teeth open from eating this trash. And it's not even tasty trash. It's just trash. So, that's what I give this movie. It's not terrible, but it's not good. It's just bad. It should have never been made. If you want to watch Peter Pan, go watch the cartoon or go watch the early 2000s version. That movie is how to do a good live action Disney movie. Like, I don't know why, why doesn't Disney never learns. Disney never Disney never follows what actually works in their movies nowadays. Like, nowadays, all they do is just fight back against whatever everyone else says. Like, people say, stop making live-action movies, they're pointless and bad. What do? They keep on making live-action movies, and they just make them worse and worse and worse. And then, like, people say, oh, we really like the 2000s Peter Pan. You don't even need to remake that. You could have just made a sequel. You could have just made a sequel to that. Or you could have made, like, if you're going to make a Peter Pan movie, make a new story. Like, don't just go through the motions with a couple of crappy twists. Like, I'm not really sure of, like, the exact twists in the story, because, you know, I'm really not that familiar with the story enough to say, like, but, you know, I could tell. And just, they were all so pointless, and they didn't really have any impact into the story, the changes that were made. Like, the biggest impact was just the fact that the whole story was kind of framed around how Peter Pan is bad and Wendy is good, because Wendy's a girl and she knows best. She never even goes through an arc. Like, she never, she doesn't start off at the beginning of the movie where she doesn't want to grow up. You know, she's just already ready to grow up at the beginning of the movie. So I felt like that was really bad. Like, it would have at least been nice to see her go through an arc, and then she helps Peter Pan, whatever, you know, but no. She's just already, I guess, ready to grow up, which she's not. Like, she doesn't want to go to boarding school. Her parents are sending her away to boarding school, and she doesn't want to. So, anyways, please like this video, comment, tell me what you thought of Peter Pan and Wendy, even though I know that, like, 90% of the people on this channel won't even watch this crap movie. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.